I'm Amy Jordan, and this is Yes, But Why podcast. Yeah. This episode of Yes, But Why podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/Yes, But Why. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Download your free audiobook today at audibletrial.com/Yes, But Why.
Like, I journaled constantly about all the painful parts, so it wasn't like I didn't think about them. Like, I have lots of journals now filled because I wrote in my journal every day for the first, year after my divorce. But at the same time was writing jokes. So it was like I kind of had, my sad journal full of crying and sadness, and then I had my jokes, which was like, oh, I got something out of this. I got something good, and it made other people laugh. And other people I could see in the audience were, recognizing, nodding their heads, especially women nodding their heads, yes, yes. And that made me happy. And then sometimes after the show, and it still happens, and it always happens, when come up to me and be like, that was really great, Because I feel like it's such a male-dominated field that when a woman does well, all the women in the room are happy, mainly. Because they're like, yay, we did it. It almost feels like a group effort,
Yeah.
Because unlike with men, when a woman gets up there, I feel like all the women are like, oh, please do good. We want you to do good. Do good for us.
Oh, sure.
It's a much different feeling.
Though that being said, I come from an improv world, and so there is certainly a wanting each other to do well vibe in the crowd. Whereas I've been in some stand-up crowds where it's a bit more competitive.
Definitely, and I think that there's a lot of dudes who do not want to laugh at women and don't think women are funny. They won't say it, but they don't. Right now, it's very much a pressure that if you're booking a show, you should have at least a woman on it or someone of color. You can't just have all white guys. They know this now. This is a thing, so they don't want to look bad. But there's guys who are just they're only booking her because she's a girl. Or they're only booking that person. And you see them in open mics. I've run an open mic. I see it. I watch their faces where they're trying not to laugh. I went to a friend's show and I watched this one guy just try not to laugh at my friend who's super funny. And then eventually he broke, but then he went right back to trying not to laugh because it's it's a matter of principle that they just don't want to laugh at women, telling jokes. And it's disheartening. But at the same time, it's kind of then you something's really funny when a bunch of dudes who do not want to laugh, and then you made them laugh, and you're like, well, that one's common. I hate people who actively hate me laugh.
You know what, though? I kind of worry about that kind of thing, though, because then I feel like women are trying to hone their material for that crowd. I would say probably the two most famous... Well, not most famous, but let's just say very recently big and famous, Ilana Schlesinger and Amy Schumer. Yeah. Both of them built their careers on stuff that's very, dude friendly. Very,
right, yeah.
Yeah, man, even when they're talking about, even when they're talking about their vaginas, they're still oh man, can you believe it? And it's huh.
We high-fived. Yeah, Amy Schumer has this one chick who's high-fiving the guy after the hip sex. I was that's so odd.
It's also a thing, like you said, it's just a lot of dudes. So it's they've spent their entire careers hanging out with dudes because that's who else was there. And so then they get into that mindset and, things go well because the guys are yeah, she's like me. It's fine. I don't want to have sex with her. But I don't know. I don't want to pigeonhole every dude.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, it's easy, like you said, to get into that. To get into that possibility of somebody, if you keep staying with the same crowd, because definitely in this area, that's a lot of dudes. So so that's why what I like to do is to try to like get other places. Like if we can get like try to do pop-ups maybe in a coffee house or something like that, like get different kinds of crowds. Like I really like that. And so that's, that's the best you can do kind of, because like the open mic scene, like when you're starting out, is really dude heavy. So going into somewhere like where I am, if I go into Philly, then there's all these women in the room. You know what I mean? So it's like half women in there. Then you don't feel like you have to do dude humor. Like Philly right now, there's so many women in comedy in Philly. I'm just like, oh my God, that's so wonderful. So, just getting myself out there and out places like that.
Yeah.
Oh, I love Austin.
That's where
I've been there 3 times and I want to come back.
Very lady heavy. There's a lot of ladies. A lot of ladies. Like sometimes I forget about
I want to come.
So many ladies.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I haven't been. I went there a couple of years ago.
Oh, yeah?
I would love to come back. Yeah, I've visited 3 times, and I loved it every time. And I was like, we have to go back. So I was talking to my fiance. He hasn't been there yet. I'm like, we got to go, but we got to go when the bats are coming out. Because I want to see the bats. I didn't get to see the bats.
It's a magical wonderland for sure. It's unlike the rest of the world. I don't think I'll move.
Yeah.
Because, the rest of the world sort of pales in comparison. Sorry, everyone. That being said, visit Austin.
Yeah.
Magical wonderland.
And there's Torchy's Tacos.
There's so many tacos.
I love Torchy's Tacos. Torchy's Tacos, man, I loved them so much.
So many different places. So many crazy, insane places. The trouble with Torchy's Tacos is they don't have good parking. No matter what location. There's so many locations and everyone's got terrible parking. I'm always like, I want to eat tacos, but I can't get there. Where am I putting my car? What's happening?
They're like, we want you to ride your bike. So they're like, right. Free the planet.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong for sure.
And the thing is, it is Austin.
Yeah. But tell me about your community, like where you're at. We were talking about Philly and Austin, but like, what's your scene like? You said you run an open mic, and it's heavily dude. But how did you get into it? How did you feel empowered to get started?
Well, it's funny because when I originally started, I was still married to my first husband, who was like an emotionally abusive and very like controlling person. So I took a class in stand-up, and then I did like the open mics that we were supposed to do as part of the class. And then I just kind of stopped because I was, kind of sucked back in. It was after the divorce that I was like, I'm going back. And I had all this manic energy that just kind of propelled me through that. And then it destroyed fear because I was just so mad. So like, I just wanted to get out there. I just wanted to talk to people because I'd been like sort of in a cloister of just like a leech on me, like an energy leech on me for 7.5 years. So it was like, once that was gone, it was like, oh, this energy, where did it go now? So I wasn't afraid because I had done it a few times before, and then I got a really good reaction. And then I just started. Well, I met my future husband, and I got a crush on him. So I was like, oh, he's at open mic. So I hate to say it, but that kept me going too. It was a real incentive to be able to see him. So, but I did want to do comedy as well. But I think that, but meeting him and making friends with the other people, that's a huge part of it. Once people have a tendency, I noticed, to stay because they make friends. Yeah. So they make, I see it at the open mics. Once they have friends to support them, and they know they're going to see them every time they go to the mic, they are so much more likely to keep all that's the way it was for me. It's like I made friends with him and other people, and once they think you're funny, it's like, all these people also are validating me. Besides, and the thing is with open mics, it mostly is other comics. So, and they're not all jerks. That's the great thing about the Valley, is like we have enough of a diversity that we do have the dudes that are like the 20-something young men, angry white young men. I don't know what's up their butts. I don't know why they're so mad at women and everybody else. But there's also a bunch of other people. So it kind of helps. Like, and I'm seeing more and more. It's like women of color, women in general, people of different ages and just sort of different backgrounds coming out and trying comedy. Because it's like my fiance and I run this open mic, and we try to make it super friendly and super like open and not like insular. We don't make fun of people who come. Like I've seen open mic hosts just make fun of the people who are coming onto the stage. I'm like, why would you do that? They're not going to come back. And part of the reason for that too is that when you're really open like that, people who've never tried comedy before come and try it. And when they come and try it, they bring people who are not comics and therefore a much better audience. So there's sort of a double reason for doing that. It's like you get better comics because you don't chase away the people who aren't bros. And then you also get an audience because there are so many people who want to try it, but only one time.
Yeah.
Then they do it. And they're like, okay, I'm good. Now I'm going to go climb a mountain. That's next on the list.
Yep. I teach improv. Believe me, I know. I get that crowd.
Yeah.
I get that crowd.
Yeah, and we have a great, that's the other thing we have here. We have a really vibrant improv scene here. So, I mean, I feel like the Valley it's definitely better than living in like a place that's like really like has no access to any kind of culture. You know what I mean? Like a place that's sort of like in a desert with no museums and no way to get to the city easily, that is kind of like, trapped in a way. And people from those type of communities drive all the way in from like an hour to get to our open mic. We'll have people do that. And it's because it's like, they're isolated out there, and then they come in, they make friends, so it's worth making that hour trip.
Plus, what's a quick podcast episode, and then you're there.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. Very true.
You can be entertained all the time.
Yeah. Thank God, because there's so much muting. That's what happens when whenever we try to go to Philly for a show, we got to leave 2 hours ahead of time because we're going to hit traffic. It's inevitable. It's a big pain in the ass. That's the only thing. I wish we were a little bit closer.
So bless your heart for driving. I would some sort of train situation or some way to get there without having to deal with it.
Yeah, there's nothing really. I feel like, I don't know. I mean, I've took a bus there once, and I will never do it again. It was so much worse. It was so much worse. It was the worst. So I was like, I'll just drive. It'll be fine. And I'll just pay like the $60 to park or whatever it is. It's crazy there, but.
So did you start your creativity when you were a kid? Like, were you performing as a kid or writing as a kid?
I was writing. I was always shy and an introvert, and I read all the time, and I wrote. And I wrote my first novel when I was in 5th grade, and it was terrible. And it was not good at all. It was what a 5th grader writes. But it was like my thing. I wanted to be a writer. And it was only later that I started becoming more performative. And I think that's the thing that I get from my mother. I see her when she's around people, she tells stories and she performs. And I think that's why I always thought when I was around people, I needed to do that. And that's why I think both her and I, like, sometimes we're just like, no more people, we're tired. Because we don't know how to just sit there and just enjoy people. We feel like we have to, like, entertain. So, but yeah, I've always had, like, a very rich inner imaginary life. Like, I've always made up characters in my head, and I spend, like, a good 50% of my time in my head, not where I am. So I'm not a good driver. Right? Yeah, I do. But it's like more like I'm trying to write a comic memoir kind of dealy. Like, so I wrote a piece for a book that came out called I can't remember now what it is. It's a book of fiction, nonfiction that women have written about getting through really difficult periods in their lives. Actually, I have it in front of me. It's called
Stories of Every.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Yeah. So that experience made me want to start getting back into like memoir, and I hate the word memoir, but that's the only thing, it's just like life story, right? But in a way that's funny, because I am tired of being depressed by it. It's like I've gone through so many boxes of Kleenex about just my childhood and all this other stuff, and I'm like, I really want to make it funny, not to cheapen it or make it like it's lighthearted, but because it's like I just don't want to suffer through it anymore. I want to get something good out of it, something that makes me laugh, and hopefully other people, in a way that's not. It's funny, when I would read from it about my marriage to people, I could see that people were, affected by it, but then I would say something funny and it's like a release. It's like, oh, thank God, something, because it's tough. It's tough to read. For me, it is at this age, I think, to just be in sort of like a grief mode for a really long period of time. Like I need a little levity. I can't take it anymore. I used to be, when I was really young, all I wrote was pathos. It's like, now I'm just like, I need to laugh sometimes.
Yeah, when I was a kid, when I was in college, and right after, I did a bunch of plays, and they were all really serious plays about people who had been tortured and gone through war. Yeah. And I was like, what was I trying to figure out? Like,
exactly.
My life needed to be so dire.
I know.
But
yeah.
Now I can't.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
I don't want to do anything that's not comedy. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I've been trying to write a comedy screenplay, and that's super hard because I feel like a full 2 hours of comedy has to be very, just almost too light, But I like what you're saying, and I'm being inspired. You're inspiring me. The idea of the like seriousness and the release of that, and I feel like. You know what it reminded me of when you said it? Did you ever see the Neil Brennan special? I believe it was on Netflix, and it was like 3 mics.
No, I have not. I have to look at that. I was on one of my really long Netflix lists. What was that? Sure. How did that come out?
The reason why it made me think of it, and now that you watch it, maybe it'll help you put the whole thing together. But he did a show where each mic represented like a different part of what the way he wanted to be creative, right? So one of the mics was serious, sad stories. He told terrible stories about his family being mean to him, or people dying, or just every time he was at that mic, it was really hard, difficult stories that he was telling. Then there was a mic for just one-liner jokes. He had them all like in little, like on cards. So he'd like, just when he went over to that mic, he'd just pull it out and be like, okay. And he'd read through them. And that released some of the tension, but the other one was also for jokes as well. It was more regular stand-up. Like, so the third mic was more regular, sort of like sweet, kind stories, and then stand-up jokes and stuff like that. So it was really interesting to see the rhythm of sharing the different parts. And I feel like one of the things he said about it was building the tension and then breaking the tension had to do with, developing the laughter. And so what you said made me think of it, and I was like, yeah, that seems like a great thing. Are you, since you're digesting this experience into something that can be, consumed, were you planning on doing, like, writing another novel after your 5th grade debut, or were you going to do this as a performance piece?
I think what I'm first going to try to do is just get it out in terms of like I've been journaling a long time. I want to try to make it like more of a formalized version of that, where I'm telling the story. I'm trying to find where the humor is and just getting it out first, because I think that the first draft is always the hardest. Because in my mind, I want everything to be perfect before it goes on the page. And that's the first thing that kills your creativity, is going, well, if it's not perfect, then I should just keep thinking about it and not put it down yet. But I have to put it down before I can decide what I want it to be. Because it's only in the process of writing that I figure it out. Every time, like I did a creative writing degree, and we had to write 150 pages. And I did all short stories. But I remember there were so many times when I would be writing a short story and another short story and realize they were the same story, and I could combine them and make a much better story. But I wouldn't know that if I was just sitting there going, well, And that's the same thing here, I think, is it's like getting that first coat of paint down or something, because you got to have something to work with. It's so hard to figure it out just before you start. So we'll see what happens.
I teach people to write sometimes, and I find that the more difficult part for people, honestly, is the editing. Though I do hear what you're saying about the like initial moments of being like, I don't want to write it because it's not perfect yet, and it's like literally just dump whatever words are on the page. But then once you get the words on the page, people get real precious about it. And I was like, 2 seconds ago you hated this whole sentence. Cut it. Like,
yeah, you got to put it aside.
You're like, no.
Yeah, you got to put it aside for like at least like when I was doing the program, they were just like write it and then put it aside for a month, and then you'll be able to look at it again. If you're taking a class, it's difficult because you don't have that month generally. But I think that in real life, like putting it aside for a nice period of time so that when you come back to it, you're like, okay, I can see exactly what's wrong here. Because when you first write it, see, I have the opposite effect. Like I write it and it's good that day, and the next day it's not, you know? And then my other problem is because I'm a perfectionist, it's difficult for me to get the first draft out. So I think it is a personality issue sometimes, because some people write like crazy, and then they don't know how to edit it. And I'm kind of editing before I get it down. And that can be a real problem, because then you just don't want to like it's so hard. Like I had a teacher was like that. She said like I write 3 sentences a day, and she had written like 7 novels. I was like, I don't understand how you're doing this. like because she was like basically her first draft was her draft, because she was, I almost think of it as constipated or something. She just like ooze out little bits at a time. But I you know, weird. I feel like
how could you?
I don't know. I mean, maybe she was exaggerating when she said 3 sentences, but she was basically saying like she writes a very small amount, but every day. But it's so perfect that she doesn't have to edit later. I was like,
that's a lie. She's
okay.
That's a lie. That's
I
a
hope
fake
so.
story that she came up with a publicist. No. Don't believe.
It was disturbing. Disturbing.
No.
Yeah. I shouldn't.
No. That's some BS right there. Absolutely not.
She was my teacher, though.
So that doesn't matter. I'm a teacher too. I give my students a lot of BS just to get them through. You got to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because when you're functioning as the artist, it's different than when you're functioning as the mentor. You know what I mean? Like the mentor has to create scenarios in which you're actually going to get stuff done, and sometimes that involves, you know, various fake stories of writing 3 sentences a day. That being said, maybe she's writing like deep outlines and then only putting 3 sentences a day. But I was like, because for me, because I come from improv, before I started writing, I did improv. So like I did theater. Other people wrote it. I performed it or was involved in the creation of it. Great. Then I was like, wait, I don't need to do other people's stuff. I should do my own thing. Then I did that stand-up thing I told you about, where I really just ingratiated myself to a crowd of people. That wasn't right. And then when I did improv, it felt like I was finally performing. So when I finally got to writing after that, it became sort of like just an idea dump. Like, I'd just be like, whatever's going to happen in this one is fine. Like, who cares? I don't know what the adventure is. I don't know what's going to happen in the second act or the third act. I don't know what's going to, you know. And then I go back and read it after, and I'm like, oh, no, I don't like this. I try to read it like it's a movie I'm watching, you know, because it is.
Yeah.
And, like, if I were watching this movie, would I be like, oh, no. So...
Yeah, one of the things that I was always good at was plotting, and like I would be that person who's like, okay, 3 pages in, we need to have the first upswing here, and then this many pages to the climax, and then we need to have the denouement. And I think I still kind of do that because I get bored easy. If I don't have like a clear plot line, I get bored.
3 sentences a day. Did she teach you that outlining method? Because it would seem to be what would make most sense with writing in tiny spurts. Like if you know that this scene is where Louisa is going to meet Robert and they're finally going to fight for the first time, like you can write 3 sentences because you know where it's headed.
Yes, I think she did. She did. And that's what she liked when I did it. She was like, "Oh, good, you've plotted." And she would show all the other people, like, "This is what you do, you plot." So I think that's one of the things that happens, I think, at least in my creative writing program, is whatever teacher's running it is the one that you always want to please. And I'm a pleaser. So every teacher I had, I was like, "Oh, you like that? That's what we're doing then." But that one actually was also part of my brain, because, like, I really do get frustrated when I see that there's nothing happening. That's one of the things that I have. Like, it's over time, it's really gotten bad. We're like, okay, nothing's happened in the first 25 minutes of this. I am not watching anymore, because I'm going to die in a few years, like 30, 40 years. I'm not spending this time on this. Same thing with a book. I pick it up and I'm like, nothing's happened in 10 pages. I'm done. Like, I got to go on. I have 1,000 other books, quite literally, and I'm just like, I can't give the time to it. I don't have it. I've done the calculations with all the books I have. I won't live to read them all. I can't give you this time, author. So, yeah, I like plots. That's my argument for plots, because we're all going to die soon.
No, I like it. Hey, man, if you die and then they go to your writing and they're like, "Oh, she was working on a project. What was it?" But you have a full outline written? That's pretty solid. 3 pages, right? They'd be like, "Oh,
yeah,
she's so
they're like,
organized."
Oh. I'd hope, but I don't know if that's really. No one's going to go digging.
You know what, though?
I guess
I recently read this New York Times piece about this playwright that died, like a composer, died recently, and he was like 36 or something. So he's like super young. It was out of nowhere. Nobody was like, "Oh yeah, he's going to die." It was like, what? So he died, and he was in the middle of something, and all of his friends and the people that worked with him took what he was starting and developed it into something. And I'm like, that's all I want. Like, that's the most beautiful, I don't want a funeral. I don't want whatever. I don't want I don't want a Viking funeral. I don't want to be lit on a boat going into the ocean. I would like that to happen. I want them to find my last project and just keep working on it.
Just finish my shit. Just finish
be inspired by it, right? Like, because if they read it and they were like, Tommy, he was pretty good. But if they were like read it and were like, "Oh wow, this is great," like that's the good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, here's hoping. Fingers crossed, right?
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, I had someone in my life die recently, and I mean, he was 60. I felt like that was young, and he was just right in the middle. He just released a CD of his own music, and he was planning shows. He'd done shows. He was going to have a big one coming up, and it just was like, as soon as they said his nephew told me, I just was, but he was planning things. He was in the middle of something. Like, my brain just wouldn't accept it, because like he was right in the middle of it. Like, somehow, like that should have just stopped it. Like, no death. No, he's in the middle of a project. It was just, that's the heartbreaking part, is when somebody, but at least he got to finish his CD, That's one thing.
Plus, there's something great about still being alive enough to have a project. Like, you're like, oh, he was in the middle of something, he can't die. And I think that's the idea in our heads, is like older people just stop having projects. But that's totally not my plan for myself. I turned 40 this year, and I was like, no, I'm going to be doing bits until I die. Like, I made jokes with some of my friends that, like, I was doing a bit about how I was choking on stage, and they were like, "But what if you're really choking? What are you going to do to show us so we can save you?" And I was like, well, first of all, I'll do the international sign with my hands that I'm choking. I won't do that in the bit. And then I said, "But really, wouldn't it be funny if I died choking on stage?" Like, no. And I was like, okay, I get it. You're my friends. You don't want me to die. Back up a little. Wouldn't that be hilarious? And they're like, I was like, nah, I just think it'd be real fun. In the middle of a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know, it's crazy. Every time I tell people, they like,
they took the bit too far.
Crazy. But I'm like, dude, it's funny. I swear.
You'd go down in infamy.
Right? I'd be like, oh my God. So good. I would clap forever. Yeah, be the best bit.
She committed to the role. Absolutely.
So I like that you plot out your writing as you're going on? Are you in the middle of your own project right now, developing this as an idea? Or are you focused on continuing to do the journaling, which I think is a great way to, get some pages in, because that's writing, even if it's a specific style.
It is.
Talking about being into memoir, it's very similar.
Yeah, I'm doing all of it because I don't have a great attention span. So I do multiple projects at the same time so that when I get bored with one, I can do the other. So, there's writing stand-up, there's journaling, there's trying to get structure for a memoir, comic memoir. There's also, I still do have like fiction ideas that I kind of want to get back to, but they're kind of like now at the bottom of the pile because I have so much going on above it, like with the stand-up, especially the stand-up, because I don't know why, but people book me and it's really cool. So I want to have new jokes, and those are really hard to write. So I have to keep trying. And it's sort of like more of a time compress, because with writing, writing a memoir or writing whatever, like I have time before I want to show that to someone. Whereas I have shows and I have to think of something new because I've been saying the same jokes for 2 years. And everybody does that. Everybody is doing the same jokes for 2 years. I've seen them. I have performed with them. That is normal. Because you're perfecting and you're changing small bits at a time and adding jokes to the repertoire and then pulling out others. Nobody's writing a whole new set every time they go up there. But you have to keep writing something and changing things, and it's hard. I wish I was the kind of person that could do it faster. And then I don't do crowd work all that well, so I can't do what some of the other comics do, where they just riff off the crowd for 10 minutes. I'm like, the best I can do is, hi, thank you. I noticed that you like that's wonderful. I love you. Okay, let's move on. I can't even, the only reason I ever talk to someone in the crowd is if they're being disruptive or they're shouting at me. Like, oh my God, that's me too. And I'm like, that's great. Yeah. Okay. And then I just don't look at them again because they're activated at that point. And I want them to stop interacting with me. I don't do well with that. I'm very controlled. I write all my jokes down word for word. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I write them. And the thing is when something does happen that's off the cuff, I tape everything. So then I know, oh, okay, that's what I did. That was off the cuff. That was really good. And now it shall become part of the memorized repertoire. Because and it's, people don't, I guess when they meet me, they think I'm not like that, but I am. I'm very precise about it. And I think about tones and how did I say that one time? That's why I listen to the tapes, and I'm not like some of the other ones that are more fast and loose with it. And I'm like, I wish I could be like you. I'm not. I know who I am, and who I am is going to go write this out again. So
that's fascinating, though. I don't know that I've ever really talked to somebody who wrote it all out like that, and I really like that. I always thought that would be the better way to get it done.
Not everybody does it. Yeah. I don't know too many other people who do it, actually. I think I met one other person who says I write out all my jokes, but when people say that, sometimes they mean they write it out in shorthand, but I write it out word for word, and then I don't necessarily stick to it for word, but when I get up there, at least I know what the structure is, and then if I change something, then I know, oh, okay, I'm going to change it the way I have it written down. I see people just write it in shorthand. I don't know. I need to know I want to know exactly how I said it that made someone laugh. So that's for me, that's write it out. Where did the word go that made it funny? One of my teachers said, always end on the funny word, so it's so don't bury that funny word in the middle of other things. So I always looking for ways to structure the sentence to make it funnier. One of my jokes starts, for 4 years in my 20s, I was a lesbian, because I want to end on the word lesbian. And then I say, but I was bad at it, so I had to quit. And that always usually does well, because it doesn't make sense that you would quit something because you were bad at it when it's that. And it's, it's not a truth. I am bisexual, but that's kind of one of the things is I feel like being bisexual is people put you in a category or the other. And so because I'm with a man now, apparently I quit. You know what I mean? It's you're not, that's the bisexual. Oh, nope, she didn't stick with our team. So, you know, and then on the other hand, my sister's saying things like, I don't think you ever really liked girls since now you're with a man. I'm like, why do I have to prove things to you? Like, there's no way for bisexuals to win other than walk around having a threesome all the time. Like,
which sounds terrible.
It sounds terrible because it would be, but yeah, just things like that where I'm just trying to
relationships. I'm always like, how do you deal with two people?
I know.
Like I can hardly.
I know.
One.
I know.
Like
I know. Yeah.
Just one person is so intense. No.
Yeah. Yeah. The only thing I can think of is one person's really intense.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. Well, that's I don't know how people do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It takes a lot of energy. The hiding, too.
Yeah, I guess there's something exciting about doing something wrong. But I think maybe they need projects like you. Like they need to be. Maybe you should write a memoir. Don't focus all your time looking around. Like do something else.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people in the world don't have hobbies or stuff like that, though.
I noticed that. Yeah, people who don't have hobbies scare me. They scare me. I'm just like, I don't understand. What do you mean you don't do anything? They're just like, I just watch TV. I'm like, that's not a hobby. That's a pastime. Like, that's something you do, like I do, but it's not an active thing, you know?
No.
So I just always like, well, what else?
Writing recaps, which that's a different thing altogether, but.
Yeah, that's like more of reviewing or something. I mean, just sitting and watching it is not a hobby. So it's like, what do you do that is not when you are at work? And then some people don't do anything. They just work like multiple jobs. And I'm just like, but do you need to? And they're like, not really, but I like working. And I'm like, wait, okay, but
well, but I think that's
anything else?
To like doing writing and having a day job, like because they may be, because, you know, like, I know people, I've always been into theater. Like, I've always done this. This is what I do. And not everybody sort of has that. Not everybody knows what their path is in that way.
Yeah.
And I think that I try to help people when I can. Like, when I've taught improv classes and I talk to people and they ask me things like, I don't know what to do with my life, I usually tell them, what did you do when you were a little kid? Like, what was the thing that you wanted?
Yeah.
Whatever you really want is an amalgam of that. Like, you are who that person is. And maybe you don't want to be a firefighter, but, like, what about the firefighting did you think was fun? And then that's the world that you need to head into. Yeah, a lot of people limit themselves in that way. And then, well, also, I mean, like, I love a job. I love overworking. That's a weird American thing, I think.
Yeah.
I love overworking. I used to have, like...
It's the pride of, like, how much can I do?
Well, also, too, like, sometimes in your 20s, like, you just don't want to have to worry about dating. So, like... or at least that was me. I guess everybody else loves dating, but I did a lot of avoiding of dating when I was young. And I worked all day at a lawyer's office. No. I worked all day at the travel agency, and then at night I worked at the Gap. And it was like such different places, such different vibes, but it was like cool. And then by the end of my shift at the Gap, I like was so exhausted. I was like, time to go to bed, you know? And it was better.
Yeah.
It, like, kept me out of trouble.
Yeah. And I mean, I do think, like, now that I think about it, I mean, as hobbies go, I mean, some people just are very happy with whatever they're doing, I guess, no matter what they're doing. They're very present and they're very into what they're doing. And I feel like with me, it's like my work, like, I get into it and there's parts of it I really like, but if I had my druthers, I would just be doing creative things. But I mean, I feel like I'm at least lucky enough that I'm doing something that I think is helpful for the world. Like, working in public health feels like I'm helping other people, but without having to touch them. Because my parents wanted me to be a doctor, and I was like, I am not touching sick people. I'm not doing that. They are not. No. Yeah, I'm like, I want to help them without actually, being in the room. Can I do that? Yeah.
Believe me, we need you to do that, so I'm glad that you are.
Yeah, that's preferable. That's preferable. I mean, it's like funny because I really feel like there's like this little itch in my brain that enjoys analyzing and doing things like building research databases. And then there's this other part, of course, of I want to play, but that analytical problem solving part is still there. So that's why I'm writing everything out and doing like diagrams and taking classes, which I have to say in the comedy world, stand-up comedy world, taking a class in stand-up comedy does not get you much of a respect. It's just like, you took a class? This is what I say. I'm like, I'm Asian. Yes, I did take a class. And then they back off. Okay. I just pulled my background there. I'm Asian. I took a class. Yes, I took a class. And I did great.
Wrong with taking a class, but yeah, there is a sort of like, I think it's the difference between, like, for instance, it's a big improv town in Austin, and so people are, like, a lot of people take classes. Most of the stand-ups here take improv classes, and I think it's probably community related more than anything else, but I've seen people who are like, what? I'm not taking one of those classes. I'm just going to do it. And I want to be like, okay, but that like you could benefit from another person's point of view. And believe me, I understand, like, if writing is not the part of stand-up that you're either most interested in or need help with, like, I get it. I get why you would not want to take this class, but just general, like, bravado? Come on. Like, we're all... I think it's tough, and people do this a lot, but they think that once you become an adult, you, like, need to stop learning, and I disagree.
Yeah. Like, no more school now. You're grown up.
Like, everything changes every minute. You need to know how to deal with it. And also, like, it's helpful to have people around. The reason why the stand-ups who don't want to take classes don't do it is because they're already fulfilled with the human connection they make at the open mics and at book mics. They talk to people in that situation. They probably have a few trusted friends that give them notes. They're not working on it. You can tell when people aren't working on it and when people are. But, like, sometimes people... Well, also, the rough thing with improv classes is everybody thinks improv is just rah, 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 meaning, like, oh, my God, you're great, which it really is. But also, I think that's nice. But some people don't like that. Cynical's very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, there's... Yeah, I'm going to take my first improv class, actually, and it starts in February, because here I feel like there's sort of a divide between stand-up and improv. I don't usually cross over at all, and I don't see myself as necessarily performing with a group, because that's like even more energy I don't have. But I want to learn of it. Like, I feel like, I think I've told you, is I don't feel comfortable doing anything off script, and unfortunately life is off. The people in the audience don't always just sit there very politely. Like, you need to be able to respond with them and think of things in the moment when stuff happens, and also just kind of liven it up, I guess. Because one of the things that I've noticed in the beginning, I sounded like I was a tape recorder, and that was very bad. And now I know that I don't, but I feel like I'm worried that if I keep doing the same jokes the same way and just changing slight things, that I will sound robotic. So I want to figure out how to be more spontaneous, because it is. I know someone who's struggling with that right now, because she's very much like me. She writes everything out, and I think she actually sits and memorizes it, and you can tell. And it's no. And, I don't know how to say to somebody who's like, do that. But over time, get better, like, you just, especially with trying to, like, give them more positive notes than anything, because I just want them to keep coming, and then that part, the other parts that are a problem, will just eventually peter out on their own, because they'll get used to it. You know what I mean? For her, I can tell what's happening. She's nervous, so she's going over it. And as time goes by, other people have, like, said, hey, you don't need to do that. So I know that it's going to go away. And I'm just always with the open mic trying to, like, okay, this is a place where you can fuck up. This is where you can come to fuck up. Like, you can come here, you can fail repeatedly, and it's okay because no one's going to be super mean to you. People will give you notes if you want, and then you can get that practice. And I especially want it to be a place that women and people of color are comfortable coming to. So that's part of why I put my energy towards that, which is a lot of energy, man. Like, it's not fun sometimes. And there are so much, every time we're going to do it, I'm thinking to myself, I would so much rather be right now. So after like the third guy goes up and tells terrible misogynistic jokes, I'm just like, why are we here? Like, why? But
we're here
creativity.
we need to show them that it's not funny.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is like, God knows what's happened to these boys. Something has, because normally I don't know that anyone really who hasn't had some troubles goes up there and starts talking into them. Like, I don't know anybody who's had no problems with their life whatsoever who ends up there with a microphone trying to make strangers laugh. Do you know anybody like that?
I think about that all the time. I'm actually like having a weird existential crisis about it because I was raised Catholic. I don't know how much you know about Catholicism, but there's a lot of guilt.
My mother's right? Catholic. Yeah, my mom's Catholic.
Good times. But sometimes when I go up on stage, I feel that way, that you need some sort of, negativity or rough times to make jokes. But fortunately for me, I just have a positive outlook. So like I, for instance, realized that in my like bag of projects that I'm working on, I'm trying to work on like a show where I can tell stories about terrible things that happened to me, but then that actually turned around really well. Like,
that would be
doesn't
cool.
have to be terrible.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because I don't know if it's me who's making it positive or if it just turns around. I happen to have the privilege of things are always coming up Millhouse for me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm always like, just as an example, about my husband and I got a car when we had our first year anniversary of getting married. And about a year after, we missed too many payments and the car got repoed. And we were like, oh my God, this is so terrible. We've lost the car. This is the worst thing ever. And I was like, we'll call them and deal with it because we need to deal with it. And my husband got on the phone. And after a 20-minute conversation, he had told them, sorry, we can't afford it. We'd like to keep the car, but we can't afford it. They gave him a better loan with a better monthly payment and rearranged the whole thing, and then was like, okay, just come pick up the car tomorrow at this lot or whatever. And I was like, did we just get out of that? Did we just get out of that? Mm-hmm. And goods happened and now we can afford it? What?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it was
because you did
like,
something.
Things like that happen all the time, and terrible things happen. And sometimes it's years later. Sometimes it's years later that I finally see the lesson. I'll go, and the reason why I had to deal with this was because of blank, and I could be making it up, but I don't know. It's tough because I think I just have a positive outlook, but I want to go up on stage and perform. I want to go and say things to people.
I agree.
I want to discuss things, and I always feel like I need to focus on negative stuff because you're right, that's the vibe. That's, like I said, cynical is funny. Like, the fact that bad things happen is generally the way that we connect with other human beings. But sometimes I want to be like, so my life's pretty good. I hope I keep talking now. Like, I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think that what you saw with the car, I think that the main point is that you didn't just sit there and cry and get upset about it. You did something. It's that doing something to try to make the situation better is really the kicking point. Like with my marriage, it went terribly wrong, and then I left. If I hadn't left, I'd still be sitting in the mess. It's the thing that you do in response that gets you the reward, or it doesn't, but at least it's something. It's a change. You have to make some sort of change. It's an opportunity to change things. And then I won out because I found a man that is 1,000 times better, like 1 billion times. Like, just infinitely better. So if I just stayed, it's like this terrible thing did happen to me. My heart broke into 1,000 pieces. I thought I was having a heart attack, but like then I end up 2 years later, I'm about to marry somebody who's the love of my life, but I had to do something. It's that telling people like, don't just sit there. I know it's easier to just sit there, but don't. Go do something. It's like when like a horrible thing happens, sometimes it's sheltering in place isn't always a good thing to do. Sometimes you have to run. And I think of that sometimes. Because, sometimes you do just have to shelter in place. But, like, when something really crappy happens, I don't know. To me, it's like now it's like, what do? We got to do something. But I do a lot of crying and yelling first. My fiance pointed out to me, he's like, you can either do that or you can start figuring out how to fix it. And I'm like, okay, you figure out how to fix it while I yell and cry for a little while longer, and then I'll join you.
Yeah.
But I like that idea of what you're talking about. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I've just been trying to figure out ways to communicate that, because I think that there's for, like, I was trying to figure out what you were talking about, how when we see other women perform, they're like excited.
Mm-hmm.
They want one of their tribe to do well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
I'm on like a bunch of women's groups on Facebook, and I'm always like, but I'm the oldest one because, I'm still hanging out and doing stand-up comedy and improv and stuff like that. And a lot of people, there's a smaller community of people 40 plus than there is people in their 20s. Yeah. So most of the people that I'm interacting with on a regular basis are in their 20s. And I'm always like, what do these girls need to know? What can I do to help them ease into their lives better?
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
I read these things about them feeling, hopeless or like afraid when they're walking down the street, and I am like, just tell them to screw. Somebody should come back at them. Now, admittedly, I'm from Boston. There's a fierceness to that. I was born with that in my blood for sure. But, I was like, what can I do to empower the women in the world? I need to show them that, like, terrible things aren't the end of it. And terrible things that happen to you when you're 22, you'll hardly remember when you're 40. Like, I couldn't tell you the terrible things that happened. Like, I'm sure I did and had happened to me terrible things. But I have a beautiful selective memory who really does an excellent job of rose coloring my entire life. And it's just, I feel like if I can share that with people, then that should be good. In the same way that I feel like your project that you're talking about, like other people that are going through what you're going through, they can see the light at the end of the tunnel when they hear you talk about it. That's
what I'm hoping.
You don't have to stay in a bad situation. And I guess it's similar.
You don't have to. It is very hard. It is very hard, though, for some people to get out of them just like because of finances or other things. It's very hard. But one thing that I always do think about is a book by Viktor Frankl, is it? It's I'll remember it later, but he was a Holocaust survivor, and one of the things that it was about is, can't change your circumstances during the Holocaust. You cannot change your circumstances in a concentration camp. So the only thing you have left is changing your mind and how you react to it, which is, in that situation, really extreme, but he managed to do it. And so I think about those things as like, if you can't get out of a terrible situation, what do you do to survive it in your mind? Like, how do you change how you react to it?
Yeah, I wonder.
So, yeah.
It seems like
it is. It's really hard.
Man's search for meaning. I Googled it. It's the first
there
time
we
I've
go.
Googled. I'm so sorry,
Thank
everyone
you.
who's been excited to listen to this and see me not Google. I had to Google because I wanted to buy another book I'm not going to read.
Oh, it's really good, though. It's really good. It's really amazing. To me, and the thing is there aren't too many books now that I want to read because, like I said, I feel like I've gotten to the point where I don't have time to get through all these. Like, I don't have the time. But that one, it just really touched me because it's like we're a dire situation you could be in that you can't change. So when I was thinking about that, I was thinking about, like, I was lucky to leave. I had the means to leave. But if you don't, get out. Like, what do you do? So that's a book that I think is just, it's an amazing read for people who are stuck. Even if it's just stuck, like you feel stuck in your life and you don't know how to change it. Like, well, how can you change how you think about it? Because that's the only thing you can change. That was the thing, like, I've been in therapy for 20 years, and one of the things it just kept telling me, and I truly understand now, is there's no way to change other people's behavior. There's no way to change how you feel. All you can do is change from what you do with what you feel, like how you behave with what you feel. And so, like, I was raised in a super negative environment. First thought with everything is negative. It is just, negative. Because my mother, I think of as like the antidote to joy. So I have that within me, this dark blackness that's just like hit. And I have to, like, stop for a second and, like, just stay there for a second and, like, okay, before you say anything or do anything, who's inside you right now? And it's like, Imelda. I'm like, okay, we got to calm down the little monster. Okay, now we breathe. Now you do something, because otherwise it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare in there. I think of it as this little monster that lives inside me.
I think that emotions can be a really tough thing to try to get through, like when you're in a tough situation, because, I mean, the thing is, you can make a decision about anything. Like, for instance, the boyfriend that I had before my husband, I remember the moment I decided we were breaking up. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to be real with you. You and I are strangers, but I'm going to tell you this story. I cheated on this guy a ton. A ton.
Oh.
And I didn't realize what I was doing. Like, it didn't occur to me that I was trying to get out of this relationship. I just thought I was fucking around. I was young, I was stupid, and I was like, yeah, funny. And now he doesn't know. He doesn't listen to this podcast, fingers crossed. But, like, he won't listen this far in anyway. It's fine. But regardless, what I'm saying is, I was doing so much. My actions were showing me that I needed to get out of the relationship long before I mentally connected what happened.
Yeah.
Like, and only after, because, like, I remember I was on the phone with a friend of mine, and I was like, I think I need to leave. And then it, like, crashed. And all of a sudden it was all like, yeah, you need to leave. Did you think that what you were doing wasn't trying to get the hell out of this relationship? You tried to date everybody around. Like, what? I was like, oh.
Yeah. Oh.
Oh, man.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? It's hard sometimes. It's hard to know how you feel.
Yeah.
It's like when I grew up.
And other stuff on it.
Yeah, when I grew up, I didn't know how I was feeling about things because I was in an environment where it was very unsafe. My mom was like a wild animal. You never knew if she was happy or sad. It was like the weather. You just didn't know. And so I learned to shut everything down and be very quiet and still until I knew if it was safe. And when you have like a childhood like that, you become like dissociative, where like your emotions are somewhere in the next room. And then you really don't know how you're going to feel about something till it happens, because you just don't know. And then you don't even know how you're feeling half the time. So, like, you can't even change your behavior or how you act if you don't even know what you're feeling. So that's usually the first step, especially for a lot of women that I meet. It's like, do you even know how you feel about this guy? Like, like in a relationship, when they're just kind of look at me with like glassy eyes, it's usually like me and a 20-year-old. Like you were saying, like I feel like I'm a hen, and I meet all these young women, and I feel like I need to hen them. Like they're chickadees, and I need to hen them. And they do. They sometimes look at you with like, really, you're paying attention to me and listening to me? I'm like, I know, it's weird, isn't it? And yeah, it's hard to know. It's hard to know, especially when you're young, how you feel about something. Very hard.
To be honest, I don't know that I knew truly how emotions affected me until I started teaching improv. And the reason why is because one of the classes that I would teach was on emotions, right? And it was because emotional choices can improve comedic scenes, right? So if a person's upset that you took your shoe off, what's funnier? It's more funny for that person to overreact to some little thing. And so we needed to teach the students not only how to act emotions, but we also, the other thing that I think is super important when I teach it is because you're all performing together, I make them all emote in front of each other so that the other people know when I'm looking at Susie's face and she's making that face means she's upset, or that face means she's happy. So it's about, for me, it's very clinical in the way that it's like, you need to learn how to physically show what your emotion is, and you need to show your fellow players what your emotion is. And we all express it differently, so you need to examine it, and you need to examine each other, so that then when later you're all on the tightrope, you can look and you know these little details. So you're making everything up on the spot, but I think half of improv is literally just knowing the people that you're working with so that you can use that information to your benefit. So I didn't realize, honest to goodness, how each emotion physically affected my body and how it felt, until I had them do this exercise where we would all do monologues for like real quick, but it would be like, okay, let's go from 0 to 10 intensity on happiness. And we'd all talk at once, but it'd be like, okay, start at 1. Something little happened. Oh, it's so cute. Oh, look at that. You got like a puppy or whatever. And then by the end, it's like the one thing you've always wanted. Like, you're getting your Academy Award. You're thanking your mom. You're in front of everyone. Thank you. So I'm trying to get them to feel an emotional thing. And then when we finish the monologues, I'll go, where in your body do you feel the emotion? And they're like, oh, I feel it in my shoulders, or like, oh, my neck gets tight, or like, oh, I can feel it in my cheeks because I'm smiling. Cool. After I did that for a while, teaching them, and for me, initially when it came up, it was just to help them, right? After I was also doing it with them, and I've taught hundreds of level 1 classes. So I've taught this particular exercise hundreds of times. And after because I always do it with them, because it's a weird thing to say, hey, let's all do emotional monologues. But I'm like, I'll do it. If you get weird, look at me. I'm doing it. I just need you to know what I mean when I say, okay, get more intense in your scaredness. Okay, move higher in your anger. And once I knew how my body physically reacted to the emotions as I was performing them, it helped me in real life. If I felt, once I knew that anger resides in my cheekbones, like just at the bottom of my jaw, it gets tight, and I start to feel it. And as soon as if I'm in a situation and I can all of a sudden realize that jaw's tight, I'm like, oh no, I can't realistically give you, or I can't give you a answer, or because we're disconnected from our own feelings. So when I studied it as an acting way, it helped me in real life, because I wasn't recognizing my own body and my own emotion until I, started thinking about the physical connection to it. Yeah. I was like, oh, I can't make a decision right now because I'm not in the right mindset for it. So yeah.
And I think anger is especially a hard one for women to get in touch with, to know that you're angry, because we're not supposed to get angry. So sometimes it's just not even knowing that you're upset, because it's like, and it's funny because watching male comics talk about their girlfriends doing these passive aggressive things, I'm like, it's because we're not you. like we were really bad. We don't even know. Like half of us don't even know we're mad. So yeah.
I'm from Boston. We're all mad all the time. It's tough.
Yeah, I mean, I've been there many times. I've driven there. I've driven there. You're mad people.
Yeah, we're just an angry people, for sure.
Just
yeah,
furious.
That was the thing. I didn't realize, I think you're right. I didn't realize what anger was, but not because I didn't know how to express it, but because that's all I was expressing for years. I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
Really fascinating. Yeah. You seem to be really trying to, like, I know that we've gone on a weird meandering with reference to it, but I feel like the stand-up that you do and even the memoir that you're working on, it seems that the effort is people. It seems to be like, I got through this tough thing. I want other people to be able to do this. And I want to, you feel like you're empowering people too. And that's why I feel like
I do like that idea. And I do think about that sometimes, especially when, like, for instance, with it was easy to see when I wrote about, for the I Am Strength, but even just in the crowd, like, some things I'll say, like, about, like, I have this one joke about my marriage, and just basically I can tell all the divorced women in the room as soon as I say this joke, there's this little, yeah, it's like, yes, it's even just that connection. Even if like they don't come away from it feeling better, they feel connected, you know? So, you know, I don't expect necessarily comedy to heal, but I think it's to be an example of, like, here's a woman standing up and on the stage, just like those dudes. Like, how many women have I talked to that I do stand up and then they just go, I could never do that. I don't hear that from men as much. They don't often say that. It's usually the women who go, I could never do that. And I'm like, yeah, you could. You might not like it, but you could get up there and do 5 minutes. It could be the worst 5 minutes of your life, but you could do it. And that's the thing is, like, that idea, maybe I do it, and then a woman in the audience who thought, maybe I want to try that one time, might do it. Just like when I was a kid, there was no Asian girls doing anything on TV. Like, I never, and now when they look on TV, there's a few more examples. There's Mindy Kaling had her own show, and I don't know if she still does because I don't watch TV, but when I saw that she was on a show, and there's that one Fresh Off the Boat, like, we didn't have Asian people on TV. It's like, oh my God, it's Asian people on TV. Yeah. So just that idea, sometimes it's just being an example of it. And like you said, also being 42, I'm turning 42 at the end of the month, like, there are not a lot of people past a certain age doing this stuff. And I know, like, the older I get, like, the less relevant everyone will find me in this little, you know, circle of people. So, I mean, you know, so that's the only thing about comedy that I feel like it can feel like you can expire on a shelf. Whereas I know that having that, like, that never expires. But there's this feeling, I look around, I'm like, who's 50 and doing this? Like, I'm looking around, I'm like,
I don't know, a bunch of white guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But with women, it's harder, and that's why I want to keep doing it, and I will. But, like, I'm very aware of it, and I don't hide my age. That's one thing I do not do, ever. I never hide my age. I do dye my hair because I don't like it being gray, but I always admit to being 42. I'll say it on the stage, and I don't look it, so people are usually surprised, and hopefully that will always be the case, and they won't be like, yeah, we know. But I say it because on purpose, because I want to know also, because a lot of women in my area are not only starting in comedy when they reach 40, or they're in their late 30s, or sometimes even early 50s. That's when they start it, because it's taken that long to feel like they could get up on stage.
I think creativity is forever. Like, we were talking about your friend who was 60 and who, you know, just released the album. That was wonderful.
Yeah, he was,
it was good for him to get it out, you know, and he was always the artist. He just hadn't found the proper way to express it until he was 60. Yeah. But, you know, if you and I in our 40s now have 20 more years of solid creative work ahead of us, like, that's awesome. That's
pretty cool. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, definitely.
And I just
like to see that.
You're talking about the crowd that you're, well, maybe you try for a different crowd, or maybe, you know, that crowd needs to open themselves up to their clear ageism, and start realizing that everyone is a person from 18 and up.
Yeah. I think, what's interesting is that, they don't see it. I don't think they realize it. I think it's more of like, I almost feel like it's more like the world. You know what I mean? Like nobody sits there and is like, oh, I don't want to hear this older person. But I feel like, it's this sense when you get older that like, people are not, they think that they know everything and they think I know nothing now. Because when I was younger, I said that I knew everything and they knew that. But so it's this kind of like, because that's the kind of society we live in. It's like, oh, it's, it's youth focused. But I am really proud to see that so many women now in my area, it seems like they're coming out and doing it. Maybe they've waited a while because they had other stuff going on. They had families. They had all this stuff going on. But now they're ready to focus on themselves. It's pretty awesome to see that. It's actually one of my favorite things is seeing that. And, like, I'm making friends now. Like, I started it's called Stand-Up Women. I started, like, basically a stand-up support group for women because, well, in my area, there's so many improv groups that are mostly women. So that I feel like the improv women have they have this bond with other women that stand-up women do not have. Like stand-ups don't bond. We're like lone wolves in the desert. And like the boys eventually form their little clumps, but women have a tendency to just kind of be like holding back and not really meeting each other. So I was like, okay, I'm going to form this group and it's just a few of us, but it's really nice. Like people wouldn't normally talk to each other or just sitting down. We just sit down and have tea and talk about comedy, but also a million other things. And it's just nice because it's like, okay, now if you want to go to a mic you haven't been to, you have a buddy you can take with you, a wing woman. And we all have that now. Yeah. It made me really happy to do that because honestly, when I first started, I don't know that I would have kept going if it wasn't for forming a relationship with someone who was also a comic. And I was like, yeah, I want to keep doing it. I have this person that I want to do it with. This is our bonded thing. This is our thing. Like my fiance and I, this is our thing that brought us together and that we like doing. But if I didn't have him, it would have been really hard to keep going back in there. It would have been really hard. I don't know if I could have kept doing it because nobody else was talking to me. You know what I mean? Like, they were saying hi and stuff, but like I wasn't going to sit with a table of dudes. Like I wasn't raised with boys. I'm just uncomfortable around them in general. So I was just like, I'm just going to sit on my own. There were no other women coming to the mic. So it's the kind of thing like I was like, we need to have something here. And that's part of the reason why I can't stop running this mic because it's like, we run it together, but I know that when women look and they see there's a woman running it too, that's a different thing out here. In Philly, they have them, but out and around, it helps.
Not to mention, like, culturally in the world right now, if you can have a man and a woman both together in a project, I think it represents to everyone that it is sort of an open situation.
Right.
Like, if you see a guy and a girl both talking about something that's like tough to talk about, that both gender viewpoints are going to be represented. You know what I mean?
Right.
That helps people a lot.
And nobody gets cranky. Yeah, I think it definitely helps. Like they, it's funny because when I first started, so many guys were saying comedy that they were just saying jokes that I found so awful and just upsetting as a woman, as a person of color. Often I would just sit there and be like, what is happening? And then I got to know them and they're really nice kids. They're just totally misguided as to what they think that they need to be edgy. They think they need to be like mean. And I'm just like, okay, well, I'm not going to tell you what you can and cannot do, but at least I know you're not a horrible person. But when you're somebody who's just coming in for the first time and you hear that stuff, you're like, I don't want to come back to this place. My God, these people are terrible. So it's that, I get up there and I'm like, okay, they're going to see at least a number of people who aren't. And sometimes I will just say, this is open mic comedy. That's what everybody's working on stuff. But that's part of the thing is I want to provide like, okay, here's another kind. Like my fiance, we both do a different kind of comedy than what's typically going on with the bro comedy. We do not do bro comedy. So at least they get a different point of view than if another bro was running it.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know. It's just hard to survive. called Stout Laughs, and it's called Stout Laughs because it takes place at a Brewworks. So they make, and they're so nice to us. Like, oh my God, like it's like out of a room of comics, they might make like, I don't know, $10 because it's like comics are cheap, man. But they give us this room and they support us twice a month. The Brewworks, and yeah, those guys. Bethlehem Brewworks, they do our open mic, and then the Allentown Brewworks, they do the improv guys. They host the improvers. So it's like this really, yeah, it's really nice. So that's twice a month, and we try our best.
Establishing rooms and stuff for people, giving people opportunities to express themselves. That's really great.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is. Like, if you want to do comedy, Lehigh Valley is pretty good, actually, because we have the Arts Quest Center, which is one of the nicest places that you can perform. And the thing is a lot of towns, they don't have like a place where like you can have art films, and you can also have music, and you can also have comics, and it's really a nice space to do all of those things. Plus, like, sometimes they have open mics for music too. They have an open mic now there too, actually, for comedy. So it's becoming like a very nice space. And like, Letitia, who you know, she and I are co-producing a all-female comedy variety show. It's actually going to be, coming up in a few days. But like, what's amazing about it is that we came to them with the idea, like, okay, this is how we're going to do it. This is the date we give you. This is the budget you have. And like, we were able to put it together with sketch and burlesque, and we have musical comedy, and we have stand-up, and we have basically comedy. I don't even know words to express what is going on in it. It's like a whole new form. And we can do that.
Makes sense.
Because they supported us in it. So it's pretty nice. I mean, like, some people, they really put down, like, we've had Philly comics come in and just be like, I don't know how you live here. And it's like, it's not that bad.
Like, everybody's used to their own scene,
Yeah, exactly.
Honestly,
I do think they're super lucky.
Professionally, need to travel, need to know what it's like in different places. Need to travel and perform and all sorts of
exactly. And you know what's funny is I find that like the comics who come through the Bethlehem Steel Sacks, I think that they're all like sort of the ones who've never been to Pennsylvania before or like outside the cities, like they're usually apprehensive because they know like we just went red in the last election. They're like, what's happening here? Like, we don't know either because we're fine. I don't know what happened. But they come and they're like all afraid, and I'm like, you don't have to be afraid. Everybody's fine here. And they're like, oh, it is. This is like a nice little, yeah. I'm like, this is one of the, culturally progressive kind of places. You're going to be okay. No one's going to attack you in the parking lot. like this is not the Hills Have Eyes. Okay. It's nice
tough
here.
With the big states, though. Tough with because Pennsylvania's big. There's so many different people there.
Yeah.
There's so many different kinds of communities. So, yeah.
Yeah, like where you're
Texas
living. I mean,
red.
Yeah, Texas is red, blue, but Austin is the bluest place you could ever be in. Right? It's a blueberry. It's called, right?
Yeah, but at this point, all the major cities are blue. It's just Texas is so big that it's all the rest of the spots. There's really only maybe 5 major cities. They're all blue.
Yeah,
but there's
Houston
also
is so nice
too.
I like it. Yes, and it's the same thing. I mean, we have it's Philadelphia first, then Pittsburgh, and then the Lehigh Valley is actually that. Allentown, Bethlehem, Easton is the next largest metro area. So, and it's nice. It's a really interesting place too. Allentown is majority minority now, and like about almost half Hispanic. And it's really interesting working in public health, like how much knowing like, okay, there's a good segment of our population now who doesn't speak English at all. So how can we provide health care and services and also in Spanish and be able to bring them in and help them get access to care? I like being in an area where like there's just so much going on that's like changing and stuff, because it wasn't like that when I was growing up. It was a totally, like it's all changed now, the face of the demographics in the area, which is interesting.
I think it's important to be open to change. I think that's the trouble.
Yeah.
I think that's even why the bro-y comics are bro-y, is because
it's
tough to deal with change. And if the paradigm of your life changes and you can't go with the flow, you're going to react either as sad or angry.
Yeah. You know, it's weird, though. It's really funny because it's like they'll say things that they think are like, you know, that people would think, oh, God, that guy's racist or something. And then somebody comes in who actually is, and they're horrified. Like, because there's this play acting, I think, that goes on so much in the bro comedy. It's pretend. It's let's pretend. But very few of them actually have those kinds of, they don't mean any of it. And so that's the other thing, is there's no authenticity to it, you know? It's just like watching people clown around. And hopefully, you know, if they stay with it long enough, they get better. They usually stop doing that at some point and they get better. If they really care about it, the ones who stuck around, like there were people I found unwatchable 2 years ago who are now like, oh, yeah, that guy's pretty good. It's also fun to watch that, to watch people improve. That's cool. It takes years, but it's fun to watch once it gets there. You're like, oh, hooray.
It's actually frightening when they're good early on. Like, you ever meet somebody who's like 17 and they go up and you're like, oh no, that person's a genius. Oh God. It's like scarier. It's like you be weird and me have to tone you down.
Yeah. We haven't really had too many of those. There's a guy that definitely, like, every time I watch him, I'm like, why are you not a superstar? Why are you not, like, in New York, like, headlining somewhere? Like, you're really good. It's sort of ridiculous. But,
do you tell him?
Yeah, most people. I believe that we all have said something along those lines to him, and he thinks we're kidding.
Sure.
So, and then, you know, he's booked for really major things, and it's still not getting through. So, I mean, I think sometimes people don't want to do something, even if they're really good at it. They just want to do it as a hobby. They don't want it to be their whole life.
Also, what we were talking about earlier, the idea that people don't know what they feel. And also, you know, sometimes what they feel is deep self-consciousness, and they don't even acknowledge it.
Yeah.
Like, so he just doesn't realize, he just can't accept that he's good. He's all like, yeah,
I think so. He always says that. Yeah.
It's a tough situation, because I've watched tons of people go through, and there have been people who I thought were amazing geniuses who, like, just fizzled out, and then there were people who I thought were crap who did really well for themselves. So, I mean, sometimes it's just about continuing to do it and pushing forward.
Yeah.
At the end of the day,
what is that? The
get somebody to hire you.
That 99. Yeah, the 99% perspiration, 1% inspiration. That I always hated that quote, but it is kind of true. It's the people who chip away at it, like a little bit at a time, who are persistent.
Like your teacher who writes 3 lines a day. The liar.
Yeah. Oh my God, she just was like the worst teacher, man. Oh. I remember when I gave her, she was on my thesis committee, I gave her my 150 pages. She never read it. She's just like, oh, I just figured it's fine. She just smiled at me. She's like, I've had you in my classes. I was like, you know, I was kind of hoping for your comments. This was supposed to be a publishable quality, so it was kind of like important to me. Like, I'm like, excuse me? Yeah.
That sucks.
She got tenure and disappeared. Yeah, people really suck. Yeah, it's quite frightening. I was like, wow, okay, that sucked.
I'm going to solve the whole world, and this is how I think we can do it. If every one of us just does our job, whatever the job might be, I think the world could be a better place. Like, it's like, listen, we know you hate it, but if you just make the fries the best at McDonald's today, maybe everyone will do their job, and then everyone will be fine today. Like, it just sucks. Yeah, because there's so many people in so many, like, high-level jobs that are just, like, screwing around, not doing their work. Mm-hmm. And it's like, come on.
They're doing the least amount that you have to do to get away with it.
Yeah. Here's hoping they have a hobby.
She hated teaching. Yeah. Yeah.
At least
well, she hated teaching, so that was a way of getting in.
Yeah.
Hmm?
Oh, man. Well, listen, Roya, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to chat with me and sharing, all your experiences with me. I really appreciate you being on the podcast.
Well, I appreciate you asking me. This has been a wonderful conversation. It's given me a lot to think about, too. So it's been very, very fruitful in my mind for me to even talk about these things and hear your points of view, too. It's been really, really cool. I really like that.
That's what I hope to do. That's one of my other goals. Empower women and help people realize their projects. It's like, yeah, I'll talk it over with you. Yeah. Sure. Let's figure it out. It just feels like people sometimes need to talk. And I'm just a stranger, but I'm a...
you have a nice voice.
Oh, thanks.
Your voice reminds me of two people. One of them, best friend, because of certain things that the inflections in your voice. And the other one is the comedian Jackie Kashian.
Ooh,
so I just think I love your voice. I like your voice
Jackie
a lot.
I
know. She's wonderful, isn't she?
Yeah.
She's great. I saw her with Maria Bamford and fell in love. I was like, I love you both. Can you always come here? You just come here every day?
It is so great.
Yeah.
I love them both. They're really wonderful.
Yeah. I love them. Maria Bamford.
For forever.
You're trying to what?
How does she do that? Figure it out.
I don't know.
Where does that come from? I would love to.
No idea.
She's one of the people that's really turned her unusual way of looking at the world into a wonderful show.
Yeah. 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 And just, her. Oh, man. I've seen her now a few times, and it's just she just has this way about her. And you're just like, how did you even think to do that? She goes through this prolonged, act out for jokes. And I'm just like, you've committed entirely to this. She really goes in there. And it's like, wow. Because that with me, it's like, I tell a joke, I go in and I get out. I don't stay there for 10 minutes. I was like, wow. It's very impressive.
Yeah.
It's really.
Yeah, she's in there for the long game.
Yeah. She's like, I'm holding on to this. And we're going through it. All of it. Like, wow. She doesn't jump out.
Oh man. Well, thanks for the compliment of Jackie Kashian. I'll take her voice anytime. Fingers crossed I have a bit of her talent. I'll take it. But good luck with all the work that you're doing in
Thank you.
In Lehigh Valley and your open mic that's providing a stage for all sorts of people. It's really great that you're out there not only working for yourself and developing your own projects, but also trying to look out for other people.
Thanks. I do my best. I realize now I think I try to hen.
Thanks for listening to Yes But Why Podcast. Check out all our episodes on yesbutwhypodcast.com or check out all the content on our network, HC Universal, at hcuniversalnetwork.com.